Hey guys, welcome back to We Met at Acme. I'm so excited to be here with Hannah Stella. Hi.
Hi, Lindsay.
So I always start the podcast with this one question. What is your favorite romantic gesture?
So I have one, but it's not a traditional romantic gesture, which is that the most romantic experience that I've had is my best friend's mom is sick. She has Alzheimer's and she needs sort of nurses and stuff. And I was staying with her with an ex of mine, and we went to go get our hair done, and there was like a 3-hour gap where she was supposed to be home to take care of her mom, but we were still at the hair place. And he completely went and sat and watched TV with her mom and made her dinner.
Aww.
And her mom hadn't eaten like a real meal in like months. And she ate 3 bowls of the pasta he made.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, I just think that there's something about when somebody cares about you, and so they also take care of the people that you care about, that feels very authentic to me.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I feel like it's so important how they treat the people that you love as well. Like, I remember growing up, I met one of, like, it was like when we were young and having boyfriends for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend's boyfriend was not nice to me. And I remember I was like, that's so not okay, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But like, you know, you can't really tell your friend that. Eventually she figured out that he wasn't a nice guy. But like, you have to pay attention to how your partner treats your friends too, and your family and all of that.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely sort of cumulative, because sometimes your partner can sort of catch on to that there's somebody in your life who isn't maybe right to be around your energy at this time.
Right.
So if it's isolated, you can kind of look into that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I think overall, the way that your partner treats your friends and family is sort of a more authentic view of their character.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, let's back up a little bit and talk about who Hannah is for people listening who don't know. How old are you and where are you originally from?
I am 32 and I am from Texas. I was born in Dallas and I grew up in Waco. But I just was on sabbatical, I suppose, but I've been in New York for 14 years.
Okay, amazing. And I think, so we had talked like, was that a year ago that we spoke?
It was almost a year ago.
Okay, so we spoke almost a year ago and I was like, will you come on the podcast? And you were like, things are fresh in my life. I don't think I'm ready. And so now, like a week ago or whenever we had spoken, you were like, I think I'm ready. What changed?
I think so. I got divorced last year, and you reached out to me sort of right after I mentioned online that my ex-husband and I were celebrating separating.
Celebrating separating. Yeah.
And I just felt like I'd gotten this advice actually from somebody else that sometimes you need some distance from things before you speak about them, especially publicly. And I just wanted to make sure that it was a conversation that I could have honestly, but also being respectful of the people who are in my life and who have been in my life in the past. And I didn't want to say something from a very emotional place very publicly that I would regret saying.
Yeah.
And I think I would have. I'm glad I waited.
Right. I think that's totally fair. Going back, how you mentioned obviously you're married and you guys separated or divorced. What was that relationship like? Like, how did it become a relationship where you decided to get married? Because like you're 32, I'm 32. I imagine you were much younger when you got married.
I got married when I was 27, almost 28. We'd been together for a while. I don't know exactly how to answer that. I'm happy to answer it, but I don't know. I think I always felt, and I don't regret feeling that way. And I think to an extent, I feel that way now, that about 2.5 years is enough time if you are of kind of appropriate age to get married to decide whether or not you want to do that. And so we talked about it from very early on in our relationship, that we saw sort of the potential there. And he proposed when we'd been dating for about 2.5 years, and we actually eloped. So I got married about 6 weeks after I got engaged. And that was sort of how. I mean, we were very on the same page about a lot of things. I think we were, turns out, on different pages about some other things, but we had a lot of the same hobbies. We had similar points of view in terms of lifestyle. He is still one of my favorite people to speak to and have conversations with. We, of course, don't talk that often, but when I do speak to him, you know, he's really smart. He's really interesting. He has a way of thinking about things that I think is very exceptional, where he doesn't take in any of the noise or any of other people's opinions, and he's very good at looking at the facts and then coming up with his own opinion. And sometimes I agree with those and sometimes I don't, but it's really interesting to hear him talk about it. He's very funny.
Mm-hmm. And when we spoke, of course, one of my questions was, when's your birthday? I remember you telling me you're an Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
When is his birthday?
He's a Scorpio.
Oh, wow. Very interesting pairing.
Yeah, and I don't know his birth time. I don't know the rest of his chart.
Mm-hmm. Do you know your rising and moon?
Yeah, I'm a Cancer moon and a Virgo rising.
Okay. I'm a Virgo rising.
Love a Virgo rising.
I love that for us.
Yeah. And you're an air sign too, right?
I am. I'm a Libra.
Yeah.
So we have that in common. I love that. Okay, so going back, so you said you guys had a lot in common. He proposed, you eloped. Where did you elope, by the way?
City Hall.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
I think I actually saw one of your TikToks and your outfit.
Yeah,
for the
I wore it.
And it was gorgeous, by the way.
Thank you.
Stunning.
Yeah, I love that dress.
Yeah,
I still have it.
Oh my God, what is it?
It's Marcarian.
Yeah,
she made
gorgeous.
it for me.
I love that. So you're then married. And then how do you determine like your roles as husband and wife at that time? Just, of course, I don't know you personally yet, but like I saw some TikToks and it seemed like you were playing the role of like the stay-at-home kind of parent. But not parent, because you weren't a parent, but you know what I'm saying? Like stay-at-home wife, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And we had a traditional dynamic in that sense, which I don't think that there's inherently a problem with. And I think in terms of determining roles, it was sort of, I had a circumstance which I actually feel a little bit, I don't feel ambivalent about it for myself, but I feel ambivalent about it in terms of TikTok, where I was not online in a sort of professional, semi-professional capacity at that time. But I had been a stay-at-home girlfriend, but it was because of sort of just circumstances. It wasn't something that I aimed to do, and I don't think that it's generally something that people should do. And so I became a little bit of like the poster girl for this lifestyle that I never really felt like I was endorsing, though if everybody else thinks that I was, then like there's something to that, you know?
Right.
But so I think our roles were pretty well defined when we got married.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was, if you're comfortable sharing, the circumstance in which you became like somebody who wasn't working? Did you have a job and then you no longer were working at a company?
Yeah, so what happened was I had been working in wholesale sales. I sold sleep and intimates wholesale, so to department stores and Amazon and things like that. And even the kind that I did is the kind of fashion, kind of apparel that does pay a little bit more, but it's still not enough.
Right.
And so I'd taken the LSAT thinking that I was going to go to law school, and I did well on the LSAT. And so I started LSAT tutoring on the side to make more money. And my work environment was just, my full-time job work environment was just not a good environment. I really liked a lot of my bosses, but there was just something, I quit with no notice, and 3 other people quit within 2 days on either side of me with no notice from our team. Like that was like the vibe. But I quit knowing that I was making more money tutoring than I was working my full-time job. So I quit, and I was tutoring, not full-time in terms of hours, but I was making a full-time amount of money. And then when I started dating my ex-husband, I had been looking for a job, and he had a big trip to Italy planned where he was going for like, I think 6 or 8 weeks. And he invited me to go. And so I decided to go and put the job on hold. I was still LSAT tutoring. And then we traveled a lot. We traveled about 190 days a year. We did a lot of traveling. And so I just sort of gradually took on fewer and fewer LSAT clients. And then it just stopped making sense to do them, just because I was not able to, and that was my choice. That was my choice to prioritize my relationship over my career. But I never really thought of it as a career. I really like tutoring. I really liked the kinds of kids that I taught, and I like teaching logic. But I never thought that long term I was going to be in test prep. And so I just sort of gradually took fewer and fewer clients and sort of stopped.
Yeah. At what point did you decide, I'm going to make a TikTok?
Literally a couple of people told me to make them. I had not an Instagram following, but you know how you're about my age, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know how there was a time 5 or 6 years ago, I think you were probably already big on Instagram, but as you finish school, high school, college, move away from home, different places, you sort of have all of these people who follow you and who you follow, who you know, and who are your sort of friendly acquaintances, but who are not your friends.
Right.
Or they are your friends, but you know what I mean? Not your friends in the
course.
sense that you're texting and updating them about
Yeah.
And people were thought that my stories were funny and stuff, and they were like, oh, you should make TikToks, you should make TikToks. And so I just made one day, a day in my life. I lived in New York and Sun Valley at the time, and I did a day in my life in Sun Valley, and I didn't know what I was doing or how to do it, but the first one went pretty viral. And so then I just sort of felt like, okay, this is embarrassing, and everybody who I know has seen it. And so I might as well just kind of keep making them and see if it turns into something.
Yeah, I love that. And what was your, at the time, husband's reaction to you starting to make those videos? Did he feel like he wanted to be a part of them, or didn't want anything to do with them? Or was he just this is cool, I like that you're doing this?
Yeah, I think he, I didn't tell, I wouldn't feel like I needed to tell him. I didn't tell him before I posted the first one because why would you? And then whenever it started, it had 5,000 views at that time. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is viral. It was not viral yet. But so then I showed him, and he thought it was sort of funny, and he was like, good, go for it. He never had any interest in being a part of my TikTok or my social media to a huge extent. And I was happy with that. I don't really, I don't think it's good, at least for me and my psychology, to have my romantic partners heavily involved in my work, whether that's TikTok or.
Yeah, totally. And one of the videos that went viral, which tons of yours have, but one that obviously caught my eye because I was just I'm so jealous, is a video of you at Hermes designing your own bag or something like that. When you were doing these things, was that from money that you had saved up from tutoring? How did you decide I'm gonna, because it's an investment to spend on a bag like that? How did you make these decisions?
Yeah, I just bought that bag, I think 3 weeks ago.
Oh, that was a recent video?
No, so whenever you make a special order Hermes, it takes between, they told me 18 months to 2 years, and then it came in less time. But it takes between 10 months and 3 years to have the bag made.
Yeah.
So you place the special order, and then they call you when it comes, and you buy it when you get it.
Right.
So you, I think, saw the video from around last April when I ordered the bag, and then I got it about a year later. It was just, I don't know. I'd always really liked, my ex and I both really liked sort of craftsmanship and tradition, and we're very interested in design and those sort of things. And so we started buying some china and stuff at Hermes because we didn't have a wedding, so I didn't have wedding china.
Right.
And I love cooking and entertaining and stuff. And so we were buying some china, and then I was like, oh, like I would like a bag, and then just sort of went from there.
That's
but
amazing.
No, I was buying them with my savings.
Yeah. Because I know so many people who like try to go to Hermes and buy those bags, and like it's not easy. You have to like be almost like offered to buy a bag, which is so crazy. I have a friend, not like someone I know personally, but a friend of a friend who went to Hermes, and she was like, I want to buy a Birkin. And they were like, sorry, you can't. And she was like, well, what do I have to do to buy one? And they were like, you have to have spent like over 60 grand or something. And literally, I'm not kidding, Hannah, she right then and there spent 60 grand in order to buy a Birkin.
I had not spent $60,000 at Hermes when I bought my first Birkin.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know.
No, totally. But like, is that not insane?
That's insane.
But
why?
like,
You can buy one on the secondary market for like half of that.
I know. I don't know. Maybe there's something to, because it is an investment piece, right? Like the resale value is amazing, sometimes higher. So maybe it's just like the idea of having one from the actual store is so special to somebody.
Yeah. I mean, I've bought all of mine from the store, but that is a crazy pre-spend.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild.
Well, good for her.
I know, right? So going back to, and don't worry, we won't be focusing on this the entire episode. Okay. But I know people are so fascinated with relationships and why they work or don't work. You had said like you guys did have a lot in common, and then you made a comment like, well, I guess not that much in common or something like that towards the end. So was there one particular incident that was like eye-opening for you or your ex to be like, you know, I don't know that this is a match anymore? Or was it kind of like we got married young and we are different and changing?
No, I think it was more gradual, and I think that we did not have the communication that we needed to have to make it work. And I don't know whether we could have, but I think that there were a few things that we were not on the same page about, but we were having a lot of trouble hearing each other.
Did you try couples therapy?
No.
Like looking back, kind of like hindsight 2020, is there anything that like you wish you would have done? Maybe couples therapy, maybe something else?
Yeah, I think we probably should have gone to couples therapy. And I think it's important not to set, I think it's very difficult to change a precedent that you've set in your relationship. And so I think if you get married, you shouldn't start doing something every single day that you don't want to do every single day for the next 50 years. Do you know what I mean?
I do, but like, give me an example of one.
Oh, I don't want to give
like you shouldn't start like giving back scratches every morning, because then you're gonna have to get back scratches every morning forever.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not saying it was that, but exactly. If every single night you give your husband, because he's your like new husband and you're so excited, like a 20-minute foot massage, you kind of, that's like a way of showing love, and it's nice, and you should show your partner love. But whenever you make anything like that part of your routine, it becomes very difficult to rebalance it.
Does that
make
true.
sense?
Yeah, no, that's true. Like, sorry, I'm coughing because we are currently living in an apocalypse. But that is true. Like, I'm curious, did you guys have vows? Because I know you got, you eloped.
Yes. I mean, we had the vows at City Hall, and then I,
yeah. It's okay.
I wrote my own and put them in a Christoffel frame as a wedding gift.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Thanks. What?
Do you want to take a second?
No, it's okay.
Okay. I was just going to like validate what you said, and that like, you know, in my vows, like I had vowed that I would do something, and now I do have to do it every single day.
I know.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And like you guys, you know, you made that decision to separate. And kind of like, what was your first step after that you were like, I have to do this, to make myself feel good again? Like, there are so many people listening who have gone through divorce, and I think it's probably so helpful to just hear, like, where do you start?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was in a situation that was very unique in the sense that I had not been working and had very little sort of structure to my life that I needed to maintain, for better or for worse, and also some amount of resources that not everybody going through a divorce has. And so I traveled for a year. I spent like 4 months in South Africa and Mozambique, and then I bought a sailing catamaran and lived in the Bahamas. So I don't think that's advice.
But that's like that's an eat, pray, love, if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, it sort of was, and I wasn't intending it to be that. But I think that actually, if I could do it, I don't know. I feel conflicted about it because I've just moved back to New York, and I think it's the right place for me to be right now. I also think that in a way it would have been really nice actually to rent an apartment in New York and be closer to my friends. I have really, really close friends. I feel really fortunate to have such close friends, especially I've made many of my best friends in my late 20s and early 30s, which I think is very fortunate because I know a lot of people can struggle to find friendships not later in life, but
of course.
And I think on the one hand, it may have been good to settle in a place that was familiar for a little bit, but I also think that I learned so much about myself, and I have seen so many things and done so many things. I literally, when I was in Mozambique, I was with 3 other people, and the car that we were in, we were driving back from the only restaurant because we were in a very rural kind of beach area, and our car broke down and we slept in the car in a game reserve. And I'm like, what a crazy...
Oh my God, that's wild.
Yeah. What a crazy life experience. And we had to get a new part from the car through and so I had a lot of really cool experiences, and I don't know that I could have spent another 6 months or a year in New York and then gone and done that now. But I do think that I was really unhealthy last year, and I think I was kind of putting off a lot of mental processing that I've done more over the last 4 or 5 months. So I don't know that what I did was the right answer, though I don't regret doing it my way.
Yeah.
I suppose that I would say if you're going through a divorce or a separation or a big breakup, I don't think it's necessarily harder than breaking up with a boyfriend you've had for 8 years or whatever. I've never had that, but I think you just have to kind of allow yourself to do what you want, and try not to worry too much about if other people think that it's I don't know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were like, don't you feel like this is a little erratic and emotional? And I was like, yeah, I just went through the biggest trauma. Of course I'm being a little erratic and emotional.
Right.
And I feel still if somebody's going through something like that and they're not at their very best, of course not. And if you are judging that, that is your issue and not theirs. And of course there's a limit. You can't. And I didn't have children or anything that I needed to stay stable for. But I think you just have to give yourself permission to kind of unravel, to redo the braid.
Yeah. You mentioned not having children, and I just for some background on the things that I believe in, I feel like when you break up, cold turkey, unless you have children. You mentioned that you still communicate with this person. What is the reason that you think that that's beneficial versus a cold turkey and I'm here to be proven wrong?
No, so I actually am much more of a cold turkey person generally. We got divorced very, very quickly. We decided to separate, and we were fully legally divorced fewer than 100 days from the first time one of us brought up a separation. And that, I don't think that that's the right way to separate.
Mm-hmm.
I understand why we did it, and I don't want to get into like the details
Sure.
of what we were both sort of saying and deciding, but I think that that's just made it sort of a logistical reality.
Yeah.
Like my stuff was still
Right. So you
like
you have to communicate still about stuff because you just moved out of this house.
Yeah, to be clear, I wasn't living there.
Mm-hmm.
I did not move my stuff out because I was traveling, and now I have a place that I'm living, and so I moved my stuff out. But like things like that, like you have to communicate.
Of course. Yeah, that makes sense. What is the reason that you decided to not change your name back to what was your
Thompson.
name? Okay. That's
Aesthetics?
a beautiful name.
No.
Hannah Thompson?
It is.
That's like a character in a book.
Yeah. So first of all, it's a massive logistical headache to change your name.
Yeah,
Did
no,
you
it
change
is.
your name?
No, and
okay.
I like you're gonna have to drag me to change it because it's so difficult.
Yeah. So it's a big logistical headache. It's annoying. I do not have a relationship with my dad, and so I never felt like tied to that name. I when I was like applying, not to the school I went to, but I applied to Northeastern when I was applying to school, and I called to like confirm that my applications were all finished or like everything was turned in.
Yeah.
And they were like, I was like, it's Hannah Thompson, and they were like, we have 36 Hannah Thompsons.
Oh my God.
That had just like applied. And it wasn't early decision.
I believe that. Yeah.
And so it was a very normal name. I changed it based on aesthetics. I decided to change it to Hannah Stella because I thought it was a cooler name.
Right.
And then also I hadn't been working, and what I had was like sort of a social media presence, and I'm a writer now. I write a Substack, and I'm working on a memoir and then another fiction book. And I felt like I like the name Hannah Stella better just as an aesthetic than Hannah Thompson.
Yeah.
And I felt like, I'm known to the extent that I'm known as Hannah Stella. And
right.
Like changing it, I'm never going to be able to get the usernames Hannah Thompson.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have Hannah Stella on everything.
Right. So might as well keep it. Does your ex have any opinion on that, or does it really matter?
I didn't ask him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
It's my name.
Yeah. It's your life.
Yeah.
Would you ever get married again?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. Would you change your name again?
I would. I mean,
yeah.
I think I have to.
Right. I never even thought about that. Like,
I can't imagine that like it would be so chill. I think it depends sort of. I will certainly change it legally again and socially. I think it sort of depends where my career goes, if it makes sense to professionally. You know, if I've like, Lord willing, written like books that are successful and have published those under the name Hannah Stella, I would probably hope that whoever I marry would be understanding of that, like professionally that's my name. But I think you have to you can't have you'd have to change it.
Yeah.
Nobody's that chill.
Right. Okay, this is my last question about that relationship, and then I want to talk dating post divorce. And it's okay. It's if you don't want to answer this, I get it. People ask me all the time, and I do answer it on the podcast. The question is, did you have a prenup? And if you got married again, would you have a prenup? I'll tell you right now that we did not have a prenup.
I did not have a prenup. I am like sort of I don't think that things would have been super different if I'd had one or not. I have always been in the camp that it matters much less than people think that it does. I'm not a lawyer, but it doesn't work that when you get married that day, even in community property states, that you own all of the other person's stuff. That's just not how it works. I would not insist upon one, but I also would not be opposed to signing something that I felt was fair.
Let's talk dating post-divorce. Have you dated since it happened?
Yeah, I had a boyfriend for a while who I started dating pretty quickly after my ex and I separated. He is a really nice guy. I had always felt so. The very short version of what happened is that I'd known him and some other people in South Africa for a long time, and my grandparents had lived in Cape Town my grandfather was a physician or a surgeon, and he did a fellowship in Cape Town, and they like loved it and felt very, very connected to South Africa. And I was very, very close to my grandparents. My middle name is Dale, which is my granddad's name. And we were just always really close. And in many ways, I did not grow up living with them, but in many ways, they kind of raised me. Mm-hmm. And during this like transitional period in my life, I really wanted to go to South Africa because they're both dead. And I just felt like it would be a good connection. So I went because I knew my ex-boyfriend and some other people there. I had like 10 or 12 friends that I knew there. And so I went there, and he and I started dating very, very quickly. I think, I knew I had a crush on him. And I think that when a long-term relationship is ending, you realize it's over long before it's over.
That's true.
And so he and I started dating, and then I was living on a sailing catamaran in the Bahamas, and we were on it together. And for many reasons, it was just not the lifestyle for either of us. It was really, really cool as an experience, but I thought it was going to be like kind of being on vacation all the time, and it's very similar to like van life, and I'm not a van life girl.
Yeah.
Like I just am not. And so we decided to move off of the boat. And then since I've been back in New York, I've dated a little bit, and it's been fun. It's been over. I was on apps for like a little bit, and then I deleted them because it was like, it's so many people.
It's a lot.
It's like thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of people in New York, especially on the dating apps. But I have to ask, like, when would you bring up that you've been divorced? Do you think it's a first date thing? Do you think it's a third date thing? Like, and by the way, this is assuming that nobody knows anything about you on these dates when you.
Yeah. I don't think I would. I think it would just come up. It's the few first dates I've been on, it's come up, or it's come up before. If it didn't come up on a first date, I wouldn't feel like a moral obligation to say I'm divorced.
Right.
Especially because to me, almost everybody who's in their 30s has had some sort of a long-term relationship. And actually, to me, if I went out with a guy and he'd never been in a relationship that was like more than 6 months, that would be so much more of a red flag than a divorce. And to an extent, though it's very different, I just think that when you're dating in your 30s, you expect everybody to have somewhat of a past. And so I don't feel like it's like an albatross. I don't know. I don't feel like it's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big deal personally, but like
I feel you. I don't either. I think like talking about having kids is like, if you have kids, you should say that early on. If that's not something that you should hide, I don't think.
No, I think if you have children, you should not go on a first date with somebody who does not know you have children.
Right.
I mean, if you like meet somebody out happy hour and you end up having dinner, like you don't need to be like before this salmon. Like.
Right. So I'm curious, if it were up to you and you were choosing your next partner, like out of, picking the things that you would like, would you want them to also be divorced? Like, for example, I'm sober, but I don't want to date someone. I'm married, obviously, but I don't want to date. I wouldn't have wanted to marry someone else who's sober. I just like, it's my thing. Like, it doesn't need to be their thing. Obviously, being sober is different than being divorced. But do you want to date someone ideally who's like been through something similar to you, or you would prefer to date someone who, let's say, would be marrying for the first time if you were to get married?
I have no real preference. I would say, I think that, I don't know, people will probably say that this is a double standard, but I think that men who have been divorced either learn a whole lot or learn literally nothing. And there's a reason that everybody gets divorced. And my belief is that even in circumstances where there's some sort of an incident that triggers the divorce, that incident was at least 90% of the time symptomatic of other things that were happening in the relationship. Like I think that it's not, I've never, from like my good friends, you know, you hear stories of like one day the husband just went out for milk and then never came home. I've never heard a story where that was actually like as, it's a shock, but
it's
where
not
it
really
was
a
out.
shock. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like, so a friend once told me a story about how, like, you know, this is like a old wives' tale type of story, but like somebody came, the wife came home, or sorry, the husband came home and the wife was cooking lamb chops, and she like overcooked the lamb chops, and he takes the lamb chops and he throws them against the wall, and he's like, I'm done, and he leaves her. And it's like, it's not about the lamb chops.
Right,
like
exactly.
there were obviously
Exactly.
they didn't leave you because the
Exactly.
lamb chops were overcooked. There were issues there. Not that it's this woman's fault. It could be totally his fault, but it's not about the lamb chops.
Right. Exactly. And I think outside of cases of like serious abuse and kind of very serious personal issues that one person has, I don't think there's such thing as relationship problems that are one person's fault. I think that sometimes it's 90-10, but I don't think it's possible that one is a perfect partner and that everything that's going on wrong in the relationship is the other person's fault.
Well, so I agree with you and I disagree, because I think that it's true. However, I guess there are just two people that aren't a match sometimes. So there could be one person in the relationship who's doing all the right things, like who's working on themselves in therapy, who is like showing up and, you know, doing all the things they said they would do in the vows, or like whatever it is, right? And if the other person is like not doing anything or also doing their best, and it's just not a fit, you know? So like there's always, it's a gray area there, I feel like.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you about that. But then I would say, even if you're having issues, in a way, if there's like a fundamental incompatibility, that's sort of no one's fault, even if it's not
right
working. I don't know.
No, you're right. Yeah, I don't think it's I don't think a breakup is one like person's fault ever.
Yeah.
I think it's like a series of things not aligning between two people. But I don't know, like there are some situations where I feel like I have a friend who like does everything, bends over backwards, like for her partner. And I feel like if their relationship were to dissolve, like it would 100% be his fault. You know what I mean?
I do. And I think I actually come at it from the perspective of having the inclination to be a lot like your friend and being like, wait, like, what am I doing wrong? Mm-hmm. And I think for myself, I don't know your friend, but I think that a lot of us who are inclined to kind of do everything for our partners tend to be, I would never call myself an empath. I'd sooner die. But
is it a bad thing to be an empath?
I feel like people online who are like, I'm an empath, it's not bad to be an empath.
Yeah.
Like it's bad to identify as an empath.
Yeah, it's like saying you're a vegan. Like,
yeah. But I think that people who tend to do all of those things for their partners tend to be very, very good at reading people's emotions and understanding their motivations and kind of working through people's mentalities for them to be supportive partners. And I think that makes you a wonderful partner. I think that, and this is not about your friend, this is something that actually I was trying to sleep the other night and I ended up like journaling about. But I think that is very much how I am. And I think I realized very recently that I am not communicative enough about my needs because it's very easy for me to see what somebody else needs. And I think that I would have been a better partner in both of my two most recent relationships had I been more vocal about what I wanted, even though to me it was obvious that what I wanted, and it was also obvious that they should be doing it without me saying anything because I was doing so much without them saying anything.
Right. That's actually such a good point. And like part of every kind of work that you can do on yourself is like you always have to find your part no matter what. Like even when you know, you're resentful of someone because they did something. Well, like, what's your part, you know? And I think that that's actually a really good takeaway is like, even let's say in my friend's situation, like, what's her problem being with this guy? Like, that's you know, why is she with him? Like, maybe that's a question that she has to ask her. So it's like, there's always something that you can
That's
find that you can fix, because at the end of the day, you're the only person you can control is yourself anyway. So
yeah, exactly. Like, I'm very like, pick your battles, and then I'm like, well, maybe Hannah, you need to pick some battles,
right?
Like, maybe pick one battle one time,
right?
Because otherwise, you just like kind of get very resentful and explode, and it's not like any one thing led you there. I don't know. But to answer the question about divorced men, I think that from my like being on apps and talking to people and stuff, it seems immediately clear to me that men who get divorced either go, oh wow, that's horrible, I don't want that to happen again, and do a lot of work on themselves and have a lot of insight into the things that they did wrong in their marriage, or they have absolutely zero insight into the things that they did wrong in their marriage. And I do think that on average, women are taught from a very young age how to be good partners, and men, I don't think, are taught that. And so I find it to be a big red flag if a guy thinks that the dissolution of his marriage was entirely his ex-wife's fault, because it seems almost impossible to me.
Right.
Unless there's like something very acute.
Totally. So it's more about what your now today outlook is on the fact that you have gotten divorced as a man. Like, if you are like, it didn't work out, it was sad, like, I have so much respect for her, like, I wish, you know, it had, but it didn't, type of thing, versus like, my ex-wife was a bitch, you know, like, you don't want that.
Exactly.
Okay, I have one more question, and then we're gonna do some rapid fire poll questions, which are very chill and just silly. Okay, so a few people actually wrote in this question, and I don't know how you're going to feel about it. You're either going to love it or hate it. But a few people were like, she sometimes reminds me of Caroline Calloway. So I have to ask you if you've ever gotten that before, and like, are you with it or hate it?
I have no opinion. I mean, she's like a big time scammer, right?
Yes, but like, that's not, like, I think she also just like she's a writer, and like, she's, you know, lives in New York and like romanticized it, and I think it's for those reasons. I don't think anyone's calling you a scammer by any means.
Yeah, I don't know. Caroline Calloway, like, when I first started TikTok, wanted to like have lunch, and I was like, oh, I've like heard of this person, and like I know she's like interesting, and I'm very I'll do anything if I think it'll be interesting, which no offense to Caroline Calloway, but I didn't know much about her. I followed her, but like passively. And then she completely ghosted me.
No.
Yeah. She was like, oh yeah, I think we even, it was years ago, so I don't exactly remember, but I think we even like set a time, and then she just never answered any of my texts.
I believe that 1000%. And I have also been ghosted by Caroline Calloway before. So that checks out 100,000%.
But I don't think I follow her closely enough to feel offended or honored or anything.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, some rapid fire. Your significant other of 2 years has never posted you on social media, and you know that he's posted girlfriends in the past. Is that sus or not sus?
I think it's something you can ask about, but I don't think it's inherently sus. Especially, I think that a lot of the time people are just like, oh, I realized I don't want to post my significant other on social media, and it's not about you. I think it's kind of sus if he's like, I just think it's sus if a man like posts on social media a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Because if you're going to post on social media a lot, but you're not going to post your significant other, that's sus.
Mm-hmm. Especially, I think also, I always come at it from the point of view of like, it's our job, and like people are like, I don't think that I will post my next person I'm dating because I don't want him to go through what happens when I post him.
Yeah.
But most men don't have that as a
as a thing. Yeah.
So probably sus.
Yeah, agreed. Also, just a reminder, so it's just rapid fire. So
sorry.
But I do love it. Red flag, deal breaker, or no big deal. You hook up with a guy who actively uses a nightlight and can't sleep without it.
No big deal.
What's worse for your child? Feeding them strictly healthy food, like no carbs, sugar, junk, or letting them have as much junk as possible?
Strictly healthy food's much worse.
Yeah, agreed. That'll fuck you up for life.
Yeah, that's really bad.
Okay. Do you think it's rude or inconvenient when couples schedule their wedding over a holiday weekend? Yes or no?
It's so hard for me to do an answer. No, I don't.
I agree. I mean, it's not ideal because it's probably more expensive, but I don't think it's rude and inconsiderate. I think it's the date that they could get from the venue.
Yeah, I think so. I also think it's just a matter of like, know your friends and know the people you're inviting.
Right. Okay, let's see. Okay, you're dating a guy almost 2 months. You're both newly single. You see each other 1 to 2 times a week and he texts you all day, but he says he wants to take it slow and get to know each other until the fall. Stick with it or run?
I would run.
Yeah, me too. I don't like those limitations.
Yeah.
Also, like what's happening between now and the fall? Like you're going to just fuck around because it's summer, obviously, you know?
I do not want to get to know a man over text. I don't want to have long phone calls with a man. Like, I talk to my best friend on the phone for like 4 or 5 hours a day. I don't have time to like.
Yeah. Do you think there's anyone that you really fucked up post breakup? Like someone that you scarred for whatever reason and made it hard for them to date after you for a while?
I mean, I think my work has made it very difficult for my ex-husband to date, which I have a lot of guilt about. And I did date one guy for a while that when we broke up, I think he had a lot going on, but he like quit his corporate job and became a Bikram yoga instructor for a while. So maybe he had some trauma.
He definitely had some trauma. That screams trauma. A guy that your best friend went on a couple of dates with, but still brings up once in a while, asked you to drinks. You turned it down though, because you're a good friend. But do you have to tell your friend that this happened?
I think you have to just know your friends. Some friends you need to tell, and some friends you need to not tell any friends so that they never find out about it.
So this is from the Vanderpump Rules finale or reunion last night, which I don't know if you watched, but you'll still be able to answer. How often do you have sex with a t-shirt on? Often, sometimes, or never?
Personally?
Yeah,
I'm not making a normative statement.
No. You.
Oh, never. Well, I guess very occasionally, but...
Yeah. Okay, love it. Hannah, this was so fun. Can you leave us with a quote or a piece of advice, something that has helped you throughout your years?
Yeah, I always say that you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want.
Love it. Where can everybody find you, follow you, hopefully read your writing and all the things?
Yeah, I'm Hannah Stella on every platform. Moxie is my Substack. It's hannahstella.substack.com. And I also have a podcast called Sense and Sensitivity with Cece.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.